Today on Substance Stories, we're going to be giving harm reduction advice for cannabis. Today on Substance Stories, we're going to continue our series on harm reduction advice. Remember, harm reduction advice is about how to minimize harms from substance use. The easiest way to reduce your harms from substance use is to completely abstain from substance use. But if you are going to use substances, I want you to do it safely. I'm going to be talking about cannabis today. And I find this a really interesting topic because I think there'll be a lot of people listening that feel very strongly that cannabis isn't harmful at all. I'm sure the comment sections will have a lot to say about that. People will often say there's no harm that can come from cannabis. You cannot be addicted to cannabis. There's no such thing as cannabis hyperemesis syndrome. These are often things that I hear, and these are lies. And I think they're born out of people not wanting to admit that something that they like doing is harmful for them, or perhaps that they are addicted to the substance. And this is a very commonly held thought in America, I've noticed from the comments boards. But unfortunately, cannabis can cause significant amount of harm. I'm going to talk about ways that we can reduce that harm. So the way we smoke our cannabis matters, okay? Or the way we ingest it completely. Cannabis can cause damage to our lungs. It is a smoke. It's not as harmful as cigarettes, as tobacco, but it is harmful to our lungs. So in keeping with that, smoking it all green, not spinning it with tobacco, will save your lungs significantly, right? Because we are sparing ourselves the tobacco. The second thing that cannabis, that we can do with the way we ingest it, is to eat it or dry herb vaporize it. That spares a lot of that spares our lungs from the smoke. This might be a bit counterintuitive, but bongs are the worst for our lungs because what bongs do is they cool down the smoke, and they mean that the smoke gets throughout our lungs. If we smoke a joint where it's still hot, or from a pipe where it's still hot, the smoke doesn't really get to the lower part of our lungs because the alveoli sort of shrivel up to try and protect themselves because they want to stop themselves from smoke inhalation. So if you're going to smoke a joint, that is going to be less harmful than a bong. If you're going to smoke a joint, but even less harmful than a joint, is dry herb vaporizing, or even better, is eating your cannabis. On keeping with this, people like to sort of hold in the amount of cannabis they have. So, you do a big inhale and then you keep it in your lungs. People try and count to sort of 10 seconds because they think this increases the absorption of the cannabis. But actually, when people look into this, it doesn't. It doesn't increase the amount of cannabis that's taken in, but it does increase the harm to your lungs. So there is no need to sort of hold the smoke in your chest. All that does is increase the harm the cannabis is doing to you without increasing any of the pleasure or the effect that you're feeling. So again, to go back to what I was saying before about people pretending that cannabis isn't harmful, I know this is going to anger people, but cannabis 100% increases your risk of getting schizophrenia. There is no argument to this. It is well and truly established at this stage. If you are getting a psychotic episode from cannabis, you need to stop smoking cannabis. You will get it again. You will put yourself at serious risk of developing an enduring psychotic illness such as schizophrenia. Cannabis does cause psychosis, specifically THC in cannabis causes psychosis, and you need to stop if you're getting any psychotic symptoms. The same applies to this thing called cannabis hyperemesis syndrome, which again comes from the THC. It is a condition where you are uncontrollably vomiting. There is no way to stop this except for stopping cannabis. But what happens often is because there are other cannabinoids that are antiemetics, they help us not vomit, and they're not stored in fat. So when we stop smoking cannabis, the THC that's stored in our fat is continued to be released. So we keep on getting cannabis hyperemesis. Our withdrawal syndrome is really vomiting, right? Because we don't have any of the anti-vomiting, anti-nausea cannabinoids. We just have the THC in our system. So people will start to think that it's cannabis withdrawal that's causing them to vomit so much, but it's absolutely not. It's the THC, and if you continue smoking cannabis, you will just continue to prolong this. An interesting thing about the cannabis hyperemesis syndrome and psychosis from cannabis, cannabis hyperemesis syndrome is absolutely becoming more common. Psychosis from cannabis is possibly becoming more common. Why this is the case is because the THC content in cannabis has shot up over the last 50 years. So it's more psychoactive, puts us at more risk of developing nasty side effects. Cannabis can also affect our concentration, we forget dopiness, right? If this is occurring, you need to take a break because the only thing that'll stop that dopiness going away is taking a break. Cannabis absolutely reduces our motivation, absolutely reduces our ability to concentrate. If you are taking cannabis regularly and you're noticing these things in yourself, you've got to take a break. You've got to chill out for a little bit. You've got to give yourself a couple of months off so that you can get your head back in order. Finally, and this is not perhaps available to everyone, but it's certainly available in countries with medicinal cannabis or recreational cannabis. It is far safer to buy cannabis legally than it is to buy cannabis illegally. Legal cannabis is regulated. You know there's no nasty pesticides on it. You know you can see the THC to CBD ratio, and obviously we want to be going for a lower THC to CBD ratio because, as I said, these higher THC cannabis products out there are really causing a lot of harm. So we can pick a low THC to CBD ratio, maybe even a 1-to-1, and use that in moderation is much, much safer. And we know that the cannabis that we're using has got no nasty pesticides on it. It's been safely made and it's not going to cause us any untold harm from any sort of nasty adulterants. Thank you for listening.